to the Botanical Gardens. And guess what? The Botanical Gardens are free. Sounds good, doesn't it? There's an amber museum, which isn't free, in the middle of the gardens, if you're interested. And also, we might be lucky and find Birute's Hill. Let's see. Well, this is a pretty exterior to a chemist, isn't it? Recognised as an architectural monument. No surprise in that, is there? It's that Weisstein, which means pharmacy or chemist, 1827, 1967, apteka, which means the same thing but in Russian. I've gone a little bit off-piste here because there was a sign indicating something called Trentinu Cringe. Sorry for the bad pronunciation, as usual. And didn't know what it meant, thought it was something to do with cross. So I thought I would pop down and see exactly what it was. And it's like nothing I've seen before. And I'm still none the wiser. The only word I can make out is partisans. And the date's 1945 to 1953. So I'm thinking this is another one of those commemorations for the Lithuanian freedom fighters after the Soviet Russians had re-established their authority over the territory again. Second World War ended for people in Western Europe, but it didn't end here. There were still people risking their lives trying to fight to get their independence back again. But it's a quiet little spot for reflection. And I'm glad I found it. And if you are interested in visiting that little spot, perhaps paying your respects, Trentinu Cringe. This is the little signpost to follow. And it'll only take you 2 minutes off the main drag. And it brings to mind a similar memorial found in Korosta on that beachside walk, if you recall. Also makes you realise how lucky you were if you were born in the West or living in the West in the 50s. Or any time after the Second World War, really. Yeah. Uncomfortable to be so privileged in that regard. That's how I'm left feeling. We're still on the main drag, Vaitauto Gatva. We're just heading down to the Botanical Garden now. There are still some stalls just popping up, and you might care to treat yourself to a piece of amber while you're here. There are options, of course, in many locations around the Baltic. In Gdansk, for example, Tallinn, Riga, and here in Palanga. If amber tickles your fancy, why not look to see if the price suits your purse? There we are, the concert hall, sculpture park, Vaitauto Gatva, just tucked away round down here is the memorial to the murdered partisans, the museum that's closed for renovation, and oh, hello, what's this? We've reached Palanga's Birute's Parkus, which is a botanical garden. It's just over here. Lovely. Almost feel like grabbing myself an ice cream, but it's a little early in the day and I'm not sure how my stomach would react to the ice cold ice cream. If you're a bird watcher, yes, I'm talking about you, Trevor Clark. Or for that matter, his wife, Olga. If you're an animal fancier of any sort, you can have a field day here. There are bats, squirrels, woodpeckers. Now, is that a stoat? I think that could be a stoat. Oh, there are also snakes. But you'll be fine. Butterflies, ladybirds. Are there really sternos deer? And wild pigs? Imagine they keep well away from us when they hear us coming. But it could be cool if you did spot one of those rarely seen creatures. Very nice indeed. And right at the heart of it is the Amber Museum. Don't know with the sun shining now if that obscures the image, but we'll see it in the flesh, so to speak, in due course. A branch of the Lithuanian Art Museum is opened in Palanga in the palace of Count Felix Tyszkiewicz. Sounds suspiciously Polish, doesn't he? The museum dates from 1963, the palace having been built in 1897. 2 floors, covering 15 halls, and about 4,500 exhibits are shown here. 8 million people plus have visited the museum. And loads of information about opening hours in Lithuanian, and also down here in Inglese. Stays open late. Doesn't open till 10, but stays open till 8 p.m, so that's super, isn't it? If you want to know how to just get in there to the museum and back, you can make note of this map. If you're happy to just wander and get half lost, like I tend to be, then just help yourself, just stroll in. Nobody's going to stop you. Don't think that really helps, does it? Bit cumbersome. Now we can just walk into the park. No worries. And that looks like an Amber souvenir shop. Before you've even got to the Amber Museum, there's a shop hand. And I wonder if this actually works. Are they able to keep scooters and cyclists out of the place? And go-karters? We'll see, I guess. There are video cameras, so I'm not the only one. And just a reminder, no cyclists. Let's see. By the way, I was going to mention something I saw on the way this time to Palanga, which I haven't seen before. On the southern perimeter, just beyond the southern perimeter of Palanga, just off the road, but you can see it from the bus, there is a very large go-kart track. Huge number of tyres have been used in laying out the weaving course that you might like to drive your go-kart around. No idea about the prices. If you're on foot, it's a wee bit too far to actually walk out there. But if you are driving your own vehicle, or perhaps on a bicycle, visiting Palanga or passing by, and you fancy doing some go-karting, then there you've got an opportunity. There's a very happy, very excitable dog, looking a little bit like a sheep, with a dog's tail. Happy little fella running around, and isn't it great? I mean, I'm always tempted to say parks are what dogs are for, or dogs are what parks are for. Anyway, it's lovely to see dogs being allowed to enjoy this botanical garden. It pleases me greatly, brings joy to my heart, as does the sight of a bit of sculpture, of course. You know what I'm like, can't resist it. We've got some intruders, not just me. Some seagulls trying to muscle in on the action while the ducks are being fed. The ducks are having none of it. It's their turf. Oh, and without trying, I guess all paths lead to the Amber Museum. I've heard of sheepdog training. These look like the actual sheep. Or what happens if sheep and dogs get a little bit too close and familiar in the pen. Wow, we've reached the Amber Museum because you can't help but reach the Amber Museum, I guess, walking around the park. Jesus Christ is here, in statue form at least. Although for some people, I guess, they'd say, Jesus Christ is always here, is always around you, my son. And who am I to argue? You know, if there'd been some of those Lithuanian folk dancers, for example, that would have been super, wouldn't it? Having only just seen the last few seconds of that performance in Teatro Square in Klaipeda the other day, it's given me an appetite to see more. And as a tourist, sometimes you just hit the jackpot and walk in on a free concert, free performance. Other times, not so lucky, but you still get to see a nice bit of architecture here. The finished product in 1904, and it's hardly changed a bit. Shall we get a view from up top? You can imagine that you're the Count, Count Tiszkiewicz, talking to all your subjects below, all the common people and fisherfolk, and your vast team of gardeners, I imagine. Not a bad spot. Not a bad garden to have either, eh? Takes a lot to maintain though. Just saying, did just have a thought, you know. Not keen on amber myself, but you know what? If there were lots of examples of those little critters which get caught up in the amber, trapped for eternity, the little bug things and spiders and creepy crawlies, that might be interesting. No, I don't think so. Not this time. Got to leave something to do in Palanga for another occasion on my next visit. And I think this will be the thing I leave for that next occasion, or the next occasion after that. One day. A slightly more modest back garden. And modestly dressed lady. That's the centrepiece. Yep, I'm being greedy. I want it all. Just wandering behind the Amber Museum, just a couple of 100 metres, and a pathway's brought me here to Samagitian Hillock. People lived on this former sand dune, which recently gained the name of Samogitian Hillock, from the middle of the first millennium, so around about 500 AD, till the 13th and 14th centuries. The last dwellings of Samogitians were destroyed by fire in the 13th century. I think we know who caused that, don't we? Yeah. They came with their swords and their Bibles, and they came with fire. Convert or die. The Christian message. After this, the hillock was abandoned, and a few hundred years later, people were buried here. At the end of the 19th century, Count Tyszkiewicz built an arbour on the hillock. Proof that people were buried here. This Coronian grave marker design existing here. And I honestly don't think I noticed this before, when I've previously been here a couple of times. What on earth was wrong with me? Or perhaps it's just my memory is playing tricks. But isn't it great when you forget something, if I have forgotten it, and then super, got a lovely surprise. Well, isn't this a treat? It is for me. And I can only assume if you're watching the video, this is the kind of thing that gets your toes curling. We've got, in close proximity, perhaps you can see if you squint, the big white thing in the middle of the screen. That's the back of the Amber Museum. And here we have this Samogitian hillock with grave markers. Now I'm hoping I'm not walking on any graves, because I'm assuming the grave markers position marks where the bodies actually are. Got a ladies' one there, the birds and the heart, remember? Well, I'm as chuffed as monkeys. Wasn't expecting this. It's a bonus, a Brucey bonus. And following another path, just basically the main path. I'm just being taken, being led to a stone circle. What is this a memorial of? Just listen to those birdies singing. Is the microphone picking it up at all? Yes, not the beach, but the walking through the park, walking between the trees, walking over the course of the week I stayed here, probably every version of the path in every direction that I could, long walks in fresh air, the subtle smells from the trees and the flowers. It was a place of healing for me, physical healing. It did my spirits good as well. Absolutely gorgeous place, and it's got retreat, retreat, retreat written all over it. Which is so funny when Palanga means the exact opposite to the majority of people. It means party and hedonism, weekends, July and August. Let's go crazy, people. But it's good in a way that there's parts of one small settlement that can be so diverse and different and satisfy absolutely everyone. So I guess Palanga's done a really good job at managing to do that. And that was quite funny. Some folks managed to walk off the path and end up in my film in the background as they walked past, because I presume they thought I was filming, talking while filming the bush in front of me. Which isn't so interesting. Not that I'm saying that this view is anything special. Come on. I'm reminded that I found some nice little spots sometimes where there were lots of dragonflies. And even with the crap old camera, which, yes, I still have, but I don't use much these days, I was able to get up close to some of the dragonflies when they were just at rest and they didn't nervously fly off, which was really good. I got some lovely photographs somewhere from that experience. Do like dragonflies. And I've just espied something through the foliage up at the top of this hill. I think it's what the Count had built. Remember that reference earlier? Let's go and see. Okay, halfway up the hill, there's this. How should I interpret it? Is it to stop vehicles only? I want to interpret it that way, but I'm going to interpret it that way. It's to stop vehicles and only pedestrians are allowed. Yeah, let's go with that. Of course, what I see halfway up the hill is actually in parallel to this rocky slope, a very convenient set of steps, but I was just approaching from the wrong direction. I might as well continue now I'm halfway up. And here we are. Let's get a little closer. Why did I bother, I hear you say? 1921. There's a mention of Birute, or Brutus. Right. I had no idea we'd come up so high. It really didn't feel like such a steep slope. But it looks quite a drop down there. I'm wondering if this is called, or the original name was Birute's Hill, and then this chapel got bunged up here when Birute got forgotten about, or passed over perhaps. There are a few different ways to get up and down, and I think at ground level there ought to be a statue, a sculpture or something of Birute herself. Birute, the pagan goddess. Where are you? And I think I may have just found Birute. And here is the lady in question. We need a nice big notice board to tell us about her, don't we? Casting the mind back to the Paleoastronomic Observatory at Sventøy, where we were the other day, that reconstruction of the Samogitian gods in totem form, how they could tell the seasons of the year, remember? That was being reconstructed in Sventøy, but was originally up here 500 years ago. And of course the last question I have to ask is, Am I the only one who's even remotely interested in any of this? I don't know. If you are, why not drop a line in the comments? If you're not, why not drop a line in the comments? Either way, you're welcome. Birute, Birute, where art thou, Birute? Which path next? Maybe this one. It seems the path less travelled, doesn't it? Oh, but I can't go there just yet because what have we got over here? Here's a curious looking place, but a spiritual one for some folk. And if you know how these things work, you can, I don't know, check in here on Facebook. It says Google Play and App Store. I'm not sure what kind of games you would play. Maybe you can just find out a bit of the history behind the place. Over here there is a little bit of information written in Lithuanian. Šventoji Benedetta, Melski už mus. No, not ringing any bells.